Welcome back to the channel, Starseekers. My name's Luke, and today I'm bringing you a review for a game called Road 96. It's a narrative-driven adventure game where you play as a teenager fleeing from their oppressive home country, Petria. Your objective, reach Road 96 by any means possible and cross the border. Now every choice that you make changes your route through the game, affects the characters that you meet and the fate of your own character, but should you choose to buy Road 96 or just stay well clear of the game? In this review, I aim to answer that question, so hit that like button, subscribe to keep up to date with my latest reviews and content, and let's get started. So Road 96 has just hit PC and consoles to what seems like very little fanfare, and it's available on the UK Switch eShop for £16.96 or the US eShop for $19.96. Now the storyline of the game is a bit of a tricky one to cover, firstly because there are so many moving parts in it, and secondly because, being a story-driven game, it's hard to go into any detail without dipping into spoiler territory. Taking place on the days leading up to a national election, Road 96 puts you in the shoes of a teenager, or more accurately, many teenagers, attempting to flee the fictitious authoritarian state of Petria. Now each journey sees you attempting to reach Road 96 and cross the border there, but along the way you'll meet several different characters, each having their own individual stories to tell, but they're also intertwined with one another, and as you complete subsequent runs, storylines converge, and the ties that bind them are slowly revealed. Now there are those who support the current government and those who oppose it, and others who, just like you, are stuck in the middle of everything that's happening. The choices you make not only affect your route through the game and the order in which you encounter these characters, they also tip the balance of things and determine the overall outcome of the game, and I really like the way you were forced to consider the implications of your actions. Do you, for instance, side with the brigade, a militia group determined to topple the government, or do you gather information on them and then call up the government hotline and dob them in? The game really tries to test your moral compass, but sometimes doing the right thing isn't always the safest option. So do you risk your life and do what's right, or save your own skin and put yourself first, in the hopes of getting out before it all comes crashing down? Now overall, I thought the story was really well delivered. I liked how the game encouraged you to dig deeper and discover more about Petria and the characters through dialogue options and exploration, though there were a few instances where your character's age seems to have been completely ignored. For instance, on one occasion I tried to escape by obtaining a work permit which stipulated you needed to have at least one child, and I was able to take the test despite the fact my character was only 14 years old. Aside from the odd occasion like this though, which you just have to let slide, for the most part I thought the game's plot was pretty solid. So when it comes to gameplay, Road 69 is experienced from a first person perspective, but there are two different sides to the gameplay. Those which allow you to walk around freely, exploring and interacting with people and objects, and those where you're in a fixed position, such as on board a bus or driving a vehicle. Now each of your journeys begins with you selecting a teen to assume the role of, with the current mode of travel, distance from the border, energy levels and money they carry all randomised. Your starting location is also randomly selected, so you could for instance find yourself aboard a bus or as a passenger in a car, walking along the highway or at a burger joint, but all of these locations see you encountering one of the game's 8 characters. Now each of these interactions range from simple dialogue options to partaking in various mini-games, or you could find yourself assisting them in some way, and as I've said before, your actions in these situations influence the overall outcome of the game, but what I found was really cool was how the result of an encounter when playing as one teen can affect the situations you find yourself in whilst playing as another. To give you an example of this, whilst hitchhiking alongside a girl called Zoe, the vehicle that I was travelling in was pulled by the police, and the people giving us a lift were ready to bribe the cop to leave us alone, but Zoe started hurling abuse at the officer and I did nothing to stop her, which led to her being arrested. In a subsequent run, I then encountered Zoe again handcuffed to a police car and had to help her escape, but this is just one example of how the game changes depending on your actions. Now once you're done in an area, you'll then have to choose how to proceed on the next leg of your journey towards the border, and the availability of these options is determined by your current energy levels, wallet funds or the objects that you carry. As you play through the game, you also gain access to perks which open up additional options, such as enabling you to pick certain locks or smart talk your way through situations, and all of these different factors lead to each playthrough being different. Regardless of whether you manage to escape Petria or fall along the way, the days steadily march onward towards election day and the inevitable conclusion of all your choices. Now, myself and Alex from Switch Corner were playing through the game at the same time, and although the order in which we encountered characters was different, we did both experience many of the same events. Due to there being no tracker in the game though to inform you of how many encounters you've experienced, it's pretty difficult to determine exactly how different multiple playthroughs of the game would actually be, but each playthrough takes around 8 or 9 hours, and there appears to be some good variety to the outcomes and endings to the game, and there's also a new Game Plus mode which unlocks after you complete it. So on the visual side of things, the developers have gone for a stylised cartoon-like look to the characters and environments, kind of like the Telltale Games style without the cel-shaded look to them. Characters have a kind of accentuated caricature look to them, which alongside the personalities gives each of them a unique presence in the game, and there's a large amount of variety and detail to the areas which you visit. One thing that I will warn you though is that once again, the screenshots and trailer on the Switch eShop are in fact the same ones on the Steam listing for the game, and these are clearly from the PC version of the game, so tailor your expectations when it comes to the quality of them. Now when it comes to the audio, they've done a great job here. The sound effects are all really well done with some nice ambient sounds to the environments, there's some great voice acting with each of the characters' dialogues fully voiced, and the soundtrack for the game features an awesome mixture of 80s and 90s synthwave and pop music. Now despite me having a lot of good things to say about Road 96, unfortunately the game's performance on the Switch is something which really lets it down. While most static areas manage to maintain a steady frame rate, the segments which involve you swerving in and out of traffic still have issues, but it's the sections where you're able to walk about freely which really struggle here. There were a few areas which weren't too bad, but in the majority of areas the frame rate dips were very noticeable, and a couple of the areas were actually pretty horrendous, with the game dropping to around 15 frames per second. Now while these fluctuations in frame rate don't necessarily make it unplayable, they certainly make it very hard to immerse yourself in the world of Road 96, and these performance issues will no doubt be enough to ruin the experience for some players. To that end, I've also had to factor them into my rating of the game, and so I'm going to be giving Road 96 3 out of 5 stars. Overall, I thought that Road 96 offered a very enjoyable gameplay experience, and if you're a fan of other story-driven adventure titles, such as the aforementioned Telltale Games titles, then you'll no doubt enjoy this one. Hopefully, the devs are working on a stability patch to fix those frame rate issues, but just bear these in mind if you're picking up the game on release. And that about does it for this review of Road 96 on the Nintendo Switch. Make sure to hit that like button if this review helped you out, let me know your thoughts and opinions on the game in the comments section below, and if you enjoy this type of content and want to see more, then consider subscribing to the channel. For now though, I just want to thank you all once again for watching,